Ukrainian heraldry and vexillology have ancient historical traditions. The appearance of the first territorial and municipal coat of arms in Ukrainian lands dates back to the second half of the 13th to the beginning of the 14th century during the existence of the Ruthenian Kingdom, or Galician-Volhynian state. After the disintegration of the Ruthenian Kingdom in the mid-14th century, symbols of administrative territories primarily emerged based to early emblematic representations. Over the following centuries, these symbols underwent slight change due to shifts in administrative division or the incorporation to certain territories into the other state. Municipal symbols were established during the 14th to 18th centuries through the granting of self-governing right to cities based on the Magdeburg Law. While the approval of the city's coat of arms was not mandatory in royal privileges, the selection of these emblems was generally made locally, without formal legal procedure. The period from the late 18th century to the early 20th century, when Ukraine territories were divided between the Habsburg Empire and the Russian Empire, saw a decline in local self-governments and an increase in state authority. Attempts to centralize the approval of coat of arms precisely reflected these processes indicated a shift in the role of municipal symbols, which now became carriers of state ideology. Many cities retain their coat of arms, sometimes adding political attributes. During Ukraine's incorporation into the USSR, municipal emblems only began to develop in the 1960s. These signs were excessively ideological and uniform, aiming to depict the achievements of socialism in economic and political spheres. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Ukraine inherited over 100 non-heraldic municipal emblems approved by local councils between the 1960s and 1980s. Administrative territorial division and the 2020 reform. Ukraine is a unitary state with 3 levels of administrative divisions. First level. There are 3 types of first-level administrative divisions: 24 oblasts, regions or provinces, 1 autonomous republic, Crimea, and 2 cities with special status, Kyiv and Sevastopol. Second level. Rayon or districts are smaller territorial units of subdivision in Ukraine. There were 490 rayons. Following the December 2019 draft constitutional change submitted to the Ukrainian parliament by President Volodymyr Zelensky, 136 new rayons have replaced the former 490 rayons of Ukraine. Third level. This is the municipal level. Ukraine has 2 types of settlement, rural and urban. Rural populated areas can be either a village, selo in Ukrainian, or a rural settlement, селище. Urban populated areas can be either a city, місто, or an urban-type settlement, селище міського типу. For the sake of brevity, urbanized settlements are sometimes classified as towns in the English language. As on January 2014, prior to the start of Russian aggression, Ukraine had 10,279 village councils and comprising 28,397 rural settlements, as well as 885 urban-type settlements and 460 cities. Within the framework of administrative reforms that began in 2014, the government of Ukraine established new territorial communities, or simply Romadas in Ukrainian, on June 2020. There are 3 types of Romadas: 625 rural, 435 settlement, and 409 urban. There are 1,469 Romadas in total. Activity of the Ukrainian Heraldry Society and legislation regarding territorial and municipal symbols. Since 1990, the Ukrainian Heraldry Society has actively conducted research in heraldry and vexillology. In a relatively short time, extensive archival work has been undertaken. Numerous previously unknown materials have been discovered, and Ukrainian and foreign heraldry, mainly from the neighboring countries, has been studied. Based on these fundamental principles and rules for modern Ukrainian municipal heraldry and vexillology have been developed. Annual heraldic conferences have facilitated broad discussions on these matters. Even in the first issue of the Society's Bulletin Znak, 1993, an article was published stressing the need to establish a Ukrainian heraldic service and a draft charter for it. The task of this service was proposed to include implementing state policy in heraldry, creating register of coat of arms, flags, emblems, and more. These proposals were sent to the government of Ukraine, but yielded no results. In 1996, we discovered the basic of the Ukrainian municipal heraldry system too. The Ukrainian parliament adopted a new law of Ukraine on local self-government on May 21, 1997. Since 1996, the Ukrainian Heraldry Society has submitted proposals to working group and deputy commissions about incorporating articles related to local symbols and their specific formulation into the law. While many recommendations were considered, not all were included. The following are the most important articles of these matters. I quote. Article 22. Symbols of territorial communities of villages, towns, cities, districts, and regions. Territorial communities of villages, towns, and cities may have their own symbols, coat of arms, flags, etc., reflecting their historical, cultural, socioeconomic, and other local peculiarities and traditions. With regard to proposals from the bodies of local self-governments of villages, towns, and cities, district and regional councils may approve symbols for their respective district or region. The content, description, and usage of symbols for territorial communities of villages, towns, cities, districts, and regions are determined by the respective council in accordance with the law. Article 26. Exclusive competence of village, town, and city councils. Exclusively at plenary sessions of village, town, and city councils, the following matters are resolved. Point 49. Approval in accordance with the law of regulation on the content, description, and usage of the symbols of a territorial community. Article 43. Matters resolved exclusively at plenary sessions of district and regional councils. Exclusively at plenary sessions of district and regional councils, the following matters are resolved. Point 14. Approval in accordance with the law of regulation on the contents, description, and usage of the symbols of a district or region. End of quotes. Indeed, the issue of approving local coat of arms and flags falls under the exclusive competence of the local councils. However, the problem lay in maintaining of appropriate professional standards for the accepting of symbols, as no state institution was established to oversee the registers as symbols. Through the effort of society members, consultations were provided to local councils and projects. The coat of arms and flags were developed systematically for their consideration. Since 1990, we have created new symbols for more than 2,000 settlements and territorial units in Ukraine. In May 18, 2000, the President of Ukraine, Leonid Kuchma, signed a decree titled On the Regulation of Heraldry in Ukraine. This decree, among the things, stipulated that local executive authorities, when addressing matters related to the introduction, approval, or registration of symbols, shall submit proposals to the Commission on State Awards and Heraldry for heraldic expertise and conclusions. Take into account the conclusions of the Commission based on the results of heraldic expertise. Apply methodological recommendation on heraldry developed by the Commission on State Award and Heraldry. End of quote. The decree was supported the proposal to establish a state heraldic register and entrusted the government of Ukraine to address the matter to determine the body responsible for maintaining the register. As I have been a member of the Commission on State Award and Heraldry under the President of Ukraine for a considerable period of time, the task of developing this document was assigned to me. I drafted the methodological recommendation on heraldry and vexillology of regions, district and cities, and territorial communities of towns and villages, territorial and municipal symbolism. This recommendation included preview developments that had already been provided in practice. They encompassed sections such as general methodology of modern coat of arms creation, general requirements with regulation the form of the shield, use of heraldic metals and enamels, etc. And last section, specific provisions. This methodological recommendation formed a coherent heraldic system. Specifically, they proposed using a silver urban masonry crown in municipal coat of arms for town and urban type settlement. As an exception, golden masonry crown were recommended for regional centers and red ones for villages that had lost ancient urban rights. For other rural settlements, golden crowns with white spikes were used. The creative framing of the shield was also permitted as an auxiliary detail. The positive aspect of the presidential decree was that principles approved by the Ukrainian Heraldry Society now acquire the status of official recommendation from the Commission. However, the Commission operated on public principles and did not have the physical capacity to frequently hold meetings and consider a large number of symbol projects. Additionally, the government did not address the issue related to the state register. Therefore, the Ukrainian Heraldry Society continued to carry out expertise and provide consultation to local councils. Unfortunately, due to the absence of proper control, some local councils were approving non-heraldic emblems. During the administrative territorial reform, no new acts were added to the current legislation that would regulate local heraldry issues. When forming territorial communities, misunderstandings arise regarding local symbols, specifically whether it makes sense to create separate symbols for communities and whether certain towns and villages will not use their own coat of arms and flags, or whether these symbols will operate in parallel and how they will be applied later. As a result, chaos in the creation of new signs has emerged in localities. This issue was addressed to the Commission on State Award and Heraldry under the President of Ukraine on June 2018. The result of the discussion was the adoption of the methodical recommendation supplement on local heraldry. In order to regulate these matters, specific provisions were specified. I quote, For united territorial communities and also for local councils that included more than one settlement, it is recommended to use the coat of arms and flag of the administrative center as general representative symbol of the community or local council. Creating separate coat of arms and flags for the community or local council and their administrative centers is inappropriate until this matter is regulated by current legislation. Instead, the use of the other types of symbols, such as logos or emblems that do not duplicate coat of arms, is welcomed for communities. End of quote. Based on these principles, the symbols of the administrative center can be simultaneously serve as presentation symbol for the entire community. Ultimately, symbols of major cities such as Kyiv, Dnipro, Odessa, Kharkiv, Lviv, and others concurrently fulfill the role of symbol for corresponding urban communities. Coat of arms and flags can also be developed for other settlements that are part of the community. Instead, for the community symbol, the introduction of a logo or emblem that does not duplicate the function of the coat of arms is recommended. As an example, the community of Zabolotiv, Ivano-Frankivsk region, can be mentioned. It includes the town of Zabolotiv and 19 villages. Coat of arms and flags were developed for all 20 settlements by us, which were approved by the local council. Additionally, a separate logo for the community was introduced. Final conclusions. The absence of a government heraldic service and legislative framework do not provide an opportunity to form a fully qualitative heraldic system in Ukraine. Currently, the main task for resolving the issues of municipal and territorial coat of arms and flags creation in Ukraine seem to be as follows. 1. Continue to provide consultation and practical assistance to local councils from the side of the Ukraine Heraldry Society and ensure the quality level of new coat of arms and flags. 2. Develop proposal for the current legislation and new draft laws that will regulate the function of local symbols. 3. Develop principles for maintaining and heraldic vexillological registers that would function at the state level. It is much easier to establish a distinct and high-quality system of local symbols at the beginning of the administrative territorial reforms than to later revise unsuccessful emblems and attempt to bring order to chaos. All of this is particularly challenging during time of war. However, there is hope that after the liberation of the territories temporarily occupied by Russia, the restoration of Ukraine's borders to the 1991 state, and the conclusion of the war, due attention will be given to the legislative regulation of local heraldry and vexillology. Thanks for your attention. Jag vill också tacka de svenska arrangörerna och kollegorna för deras hjälp. Tack så mycket.